everyone, welcome into your box seat, brought to you in association with Sweet Lou, of course, standing at Woodlands. Hope your harness racing week has gone well. Michael Guerin, I know it did for you. Great performance by the Kiwis, a number of them, even though numerically we didn't have huge numbers in Melbourne. Gee, it was proud to be over there and be part of that action. Evening to you.
Yeah, hi Greg, big hi to everybody. As we close in on sales week, it was nice to see what you potentially could buy next week at Karaka and of course in Christchurch, because Lazarus the legend continues to grow. I'm not sure it was any better than what we've seen at Addington or Gloucester Park, because the bar's set so high now, Greg. But the conversations are starting. They've been going for a while. Where does he stand on the pecking order of the so-called GOATs? I think we'll know more after Menangle in a couple of weeks, but at the moment he is head and shoulders above any other harness horse in Australasia. And you can make the case, Gregory, outside of Winx, he's the second best racehorse in Australasia.
Magnificent crowd there, biggest I've seen at Melton to see him. That's not the only thing we'll be talking about tonight. We'll have a look at the Dullard Cup as well. Catch up with Gene Feast, of course, the impact that the Feast family have made on New Zealand harness racing, Australasian harness racing, Michael, in the last couple of years has been enormous, 4 or 5 years to be fair. So there's plenty to talk about today.
Well, that Trans-Tasman thing, Greg, coming into the sales is huge, because we buy some of theirs, not as many as they buy here. And unfortunately also some sad news tonight too about one of the nice guys of harness racing. But yeah, Hunter Cup sort of lit up everybody's weekend, Greg. Yeah,
and we've got premierships to talk about, and yeah, plenty for you on the show, as well as a preview of a couple of decent races coming up this weekend, both sides of the Tasman. But the Hunter Cup for us, that was number one, $500,000, Kiwi record in it, nothing short of outstanding in the last quarter of a century. Here was the first thing that surprised a lot of people. One of the earplugs actually came out on Shadow Sachs, not that I think that had anything to do with what Gavin Lang was doing, because he was always heading there.
Well, that changed the dynamic of the race for not so much just him, but for Lenny the Shark, because Tiger Tara was expected to lead, and he still gets that lead here. There's Lazarus outside the leader, but all of a sudden Lenny the Shark, who wouldn't have won, but would have been in the trail, was 3 deep. He is the best drive in the race. Greg Sugars takes off the second they settle on Soho Tribeca, knowing he'll get the death, because Mark Purdon did the same thing in the Inter-Dominion final, was happy to give it away early doors, and will then retake it, and he'll be sitting on the back of the champ. That was a beautiful bit of rainsmanship.
Yeah, and very shortly we'll see Mark Purdon take luck out of play. He moves and goes round to park. Just going back to the earlier move of Tiger Tara, coming straight off the back of Gavin Lang. That happened in Perth when Mark was driving Ultimate Machete and he copped a decent suspension. Different set of rules there in Melbourne. Interestingly, in the stewards' report, they suggested that there was room to come out, but then not long after that he locked wheels with Lazarus. I'm not sure those two pieces of information in the same sentence make sense.
Look, one thing I'm sure of is that there's no visitors barrier draw in racing. It's an old saying, oh, visitors draw. That's all rubbish. But I do think that New Zealand's elite horse people do get treated more harshly by the stewards in Australia than they do at home. I'm not sure it's a definitive thing where they think to themselves, well, we're going to treat them harsher. Maybe you don't know them as well. I'm not sure what the reasons are. But Anthony Butt for a long time, visiting Victoria, Mark and both Natalie have been treated, I believe, harshly compared with how they would be here or there for offences over the last couple of years.
And there's Natalie wandering about a bit with, of course, Heaven Rocks. Spoke to her yesterday about this. She is mounting an appeal against the severity, not the actual charge.
She wasn't wandering about, she was half-cutting.
Well, she was. But as you know with Heaven Rocks, she actually made a really good point to me, though. The quarter from the 1200 to the 800 was about 27.5 seconds, and they broke 27 seconds for the next quarter. Therefore, how possibly could you be making ground on that speed? She's got a fair case to have it reduced. I'm not
of course.
saying.
The penalty was ridiculous.
Yeah, no question. $1,500 on top of that. Incidentally, his performance was outstanding, and you'll see him coming wide here. But Lazarus putting it to Tiger Tara. I think finally, Michael, finally that might be the end of the Kevin Bizzuto, we're going to lead in outstaying conversations.
26-8 down the back, maybe some fitness concerns. They were all there to gun him down, and here's what happened.
Lazarus in front from Soho Tribeca. Lazarus keeps giving the miracle horse in front, and Lazarus has done it again. Lazarus, the champ, has beaten Soho Tribeca. He was brave in defeat. Third's close. Lenny the Shark, Heaven.
So a terrific contest. Now he's 15 Group 1s in the bank, and he hasn't actually lost a Group 1 since that Miracle Mile, of course, earlier in 2017. And he'll get his chance now, Michael, if he completes that. That is nothing short of remarkable what he's been able to do in the last 6 months.
I think that's the piece of dry bread in the throat. You know, that at the moment, there's no doubt he's a champion, but to be that all-time conquering champion in the eyes of some, and there will always be cynics in Australia because unless they see everything with their own eyes, they don't believe it. Well, now they believe it in Perth, and now they believe it in Victoria. He's got to go to Menangle and win the Miracle Mile. I mean, Black's a fake, never won a Miracle Mile. So you can be a total champion without winning a Miracle Mile. But once you win that, Greg, as this horse, which means you've won Group 1s on every track in Australasia that matters, then there's no more arguments. After that, you start talking about your body of work. Now, he hasn't raced as long as Black's a Fake or On the Mighty Quinn, so you can't say he is a better horse than Black's a Fake because Black's a Fake has achieved more. But Black's a Fake also didn't achieve it in 2 countries and didn't go to Perth, so he's a wonderful, wonderful
Michael, get
horse.
out a camera shot, will
Sorry,
you?
I was talking to Mark there to try and get his initial buzz, and he was thrilled. And I said, were you surprised after the fitness concerns he could do that because he can't have been as fit as he was at Gloucester Park? He said, no. So he also admitted that on the Wednesday he had his concerns because Heaven Rocks thrashed Lazarus in track work, but that's very much a case of one is a great athlete, Greg, and the other one is a champion racehorse. You and I were lucky enough to spend time with Lazarus about an hour after the race. Calm as a lamb, nibbling at your shoulder, rubbing his nose on your suit. Remarkable for a stallion who's been through that.
Will you send them an account for that dry cleaning?
That's actually almost a privilege, Gregory.
Yeah, it was.
Remarkable to see a horse like him, that calm, and what a lovely, kind animal he is. So, look, he's an incredible horse. I'll leave the conversation about goats and all that sort of stuff until after the Miracle Mile, and then we can divorce the emotion from it. I had a few people say to me straight after the race, oh, that was his best performance, but the same people said the same thing about the Fremantle Cup and the Inter-Dominion.
No, still his best performance for mine was the New Zealand Cup by 10 lengths, so
Totally agree.
Anyway.
Track record, race record, obviously.
And more work than any other horse in the race.
Oh, and if you watch New Zealand Cups for the next 100 years, you almost certainly won't see that again. Whereas if you watch Hunter Cups for another 100 years, you'll see that again. And you'll see it in Inter-Dominion because Black's a Fake did something similar in an Inter-Dominion at Globe Derby 10 years ago. So horses do win Inter-Dominions and Hunter Cups in that fashion. Horses do not win New Zealand Cups in that fashion unless it was back in the 80s when some pretty crazy things were going on.
Armalite and Steel Jaw.
Armalite and Bonnie's Chance won those cups in about 4.5, 4.7, 4.10.
Yeah.
He won it 15 seconds faster than them, and Steel Jaw, well, leave me right out of that conversation.
Yeah, exactly. We need to get to Mark Purdon, get his thoughts about what this meant to him, because I believe he's really enjoying the ride. Mark, to quote you, they can talk the talk, but they couldn't walk the walk again. He's been brilliant.
He has, Greg, yeah. You just can't say enough about him, and I don't even saying a champion is playing him down a little bit. He's just awesome.
15th Group 1 tonight. Talk us through the run, because they certainly didn't hand it to you.
No, a bit of jostling early in the race, and I'd sort of gone hard the first couple of 100 metres just to hold my spot and cross to one off the fence. And Soho Tribeca came round with probably after 400 metres and just put the pace on a little bit for a little while, and then came back to us, and you could see he was going to get away with pretty soft sectionals from there on. And I thought, I know he'd outstay him any day of the week, and I thought, let's turn it into that sort of race.
Mark, he smashed the clock again last mile in 1:52 and change. And is there anything this horse can't do?
Don't know. I just really don't know. It doesn't surprise me because I just think I know how great he is, but he's just amazing.
Mark, you're soaking up the moments too. You're taking your time when you're bringing him back to scale, and you're letting the people really enjoy this horse. And I think you're enjoying him as well. For all the great horses you've had, you might be enjoying this one the most.
Oh, absolutely, Greg. And I know like most of this crowd here tonight's come out to see him, and I like to acknowledge them and sort of thank them in a way for making the effort to come out. And this is what harness racing's all about, and this is what we need.
Mark, one more big dance for him. The race that got away last year, the Miracle Mile. Got a lot of confidence going towards that, I'm sure.
Yeah, a lot of confidence now, Greg, and you know, just hope he gets a reasonable draw. Yeah.
And reading off the All Stars website, the first New Zealand pacer to win $1 million in a season. He won 920-odd thousand last season, so that in itself's a remarkable stat, and it's not finished.
No, the Miracle Mile is a tricky race no matter how great you are. A lot of great horses like Blacks of Fate never won it. Obviously on the Mighty Quinn never won it. If you draw outside 5, they just don't win usually. This horse may be good enough to move and do so. Soho Tribeca was good enough there, and we'll talk to Greg Sugars shortly, that if he led in a Miracle Mile, he wouldn't be an easy kill. But I think he's got the rest of them covered.
I'll tell you what, Heaven Rocks has got his work cut out. Now he's been placed back on the unruly, which again, Michael, was a staggering decision.
He's got no chance of winning the Miracle Mile.
Michael, he walked around behind them while they were reshoeing Moonrock, and they counted that as being untractable. I don't want to...
The clerk of the courses and the starters' assistants are there to help until the race is enabled. And the race is enabled once the score-up starts. So what they do before that point is totally irrelevant.
And he led the Ballarat Cup from barrier 1.
Unless they fall down on the track, it doesn't make any sense to me. It's not logical. I'm not sure the Miracle Mile was a race he could win anyway, but from the outside of the gate, he's got virtually no hope. His real odds are 50-1 because no matter how great the horses are, when you settle back in the Miracle Mile and they go 149, you can't make that mid-race move, and that would potentially be the problem for Lazarus, is if he settled last, say he drew barrier 7, or second last, and then had to move to the chair, well, they might be going 27 seconds at that stage. I still think he would win it, but it's an awkward, funny race. In saying that now, if he draws 1, 2 or 3, with the respect he's garnered, you'd think most of them would get out of his way. So I hope he wins it, because then if he does, Greg, and we'll talk about that, he races in the 17th in a prelude, then we have a horse next season we can sell the 3rd attempt at the New Zealand Cup, the Inter-Dominion, a whole range of races. And we saw the crowd there at Melton. I go to Melton a lot. That was a big crowd.
Yeah, it was.
And there's no doubts they were there for him. So this is the horse that the new Inter-Dominion format needs, and I'm sure his owners would give him the chance at least for another season. So it's going to be fun. But that Miracle Mile is a bonus, but it's still a very important bonus.
Let's hear from those just in behind the champ. Well, the camp were pretty confident going into this race tonight, and that was justified. He went enormous.
Yeah, that's right. No, we're just extremely proud of the horse's performance. First up here for Mick Stanley in Victoria, so hopefully there's better things to come.
Look, it was a great race. You had to make tactical moves, and Lazarus was what Lazarus is, but your guy was equally as good tonight. He was outstanding.
Yeah, that's right. I sort of had to pinch myself at the 300 when I was still travelling pretty good on his back. I thought, wow, I'm a chance of beating him here, but he is a true champion, and I suppose getting that close to a champion like him in a race like that, it's like winning anyway.
So Miracle Mile now, you'll have to go through the pre-races obviously to qualify for that, but in this sort of form, he's got to be a great chance of making the field at least.
Yeah, absolutely. No, he's he's a versatile sort of horse. He's got good gate speed. He's pretty tough, and he's got some good speed as well if sat up. So Miracle Mile should be right up his alley, and hopefully we can stay in front of Lazarus.
Natalie got a long way off them, but he didn't let you down.
No, he didn't, Greg. I was just thrilled to bits. He settled so good. He went up to the mobile good. I think it was a great step in his career for him, just to race like that and to run home good, and he tried hard. I just think he'll benefit so much from that run.
What have we got coming up in the next couple of months? What's the pathway for him? What do you think will be next?
Win the Miracle Mile? Yeah, well, we've got to go to the sprints, obviously, so hopefully get into the mile, because I think that's his forte. He's a dead-set speed horse. So, yeah, I'd love to see him get into that Miracle Mile and cut him loose for a mile.
Natalie, can you sum up for me, from a horse person's perspective, just what this great horse Lazarus means to everyone?
Oh, Look, Les is just one of those guys. He's a pure gentleman. Nothing phases him. He's just the nicest horse to have around. He's just tries his guts out time after time after time, never lets you down. And I think, you know, he just should be maybe like an ambassador for sport. He is just an amazing athlete, yeah.
You've been through this with your own horse, Black Safake. He's got that cult following now and he thoroughly deserves it.
Oh, he does. Look, more so than anybody ever, you know. He's just one of the greatest horses we've ever seen, I'm sure of it. And when you get to know him, he's one of the greatest guys you ever meet too.
So great to hear that from Natalie Rasmussen, who's been through this herself, and I think the opportunity for the sport to use him as an ambassador is clearly there, and I hope that is taken up.
Well, you're starting to get it from the galloping people. I had to talk to Darren Weir, who was there, who obviously has trained a bunch of good horses, and he was like, wow, this is a really good horse. And a lot of people are starting to buy into it. So as I said, the Miracle Mile, the build-up will be big. And much like the Winx thing, I think most people will be building up hoping for one result, Greg, because for next season it could be really important. Still, there's plenty to like about it, a whole bunch of runs in behind.
Oh, Lenny the Shark, Amaretto, there were plenty of credit there.
And Tiger Tara punch it. I think, like you said, that might be the last time they try to lead over distance against Lazarus. So good fun, good race night.
The other group one on the night.
Kai Valley Blur, who raced really well here over the summer. Massive performance to come from. This is him, 3 wide with cover behind our own, Temporale, and 2 horses who went to war several times at Alexandra Park in Cambridge do it here at Melton.
Went to it. Kai Valley Blur getting home. Temporale hit the lead with 100 to go. Kai Valley Blur's cutting it down. Temporale, Kai Valley Blur, they hit it. Kai Valley Blur. Kai Valley Blur and the puppet. Chris Elford got up in the last hop.
Well, number 24 in his career, remarkably, Michael, only his second Group 1, and the other came in the Bill Collins Mile in 2013, so wee time between drinks.
The reason for that is he's just not that good. Like, he's really good, but he's raced in an era against Keystone Dell and Monbay, who are better, and even the best version of Speeding Spur. We need to be realistic about what we're seeing at the moment. The open class trotters are a level down on champion status. We've got lots of really good horses in there, and Temporale is still only 5, so he'll continue to get better. But I counted them off the other day. There's probably 8 horses in New Zealand and or Australia, but predominantly New Zealand, who at their peak would have been in the top 10 in this market. Feels like great things happen. Amaretto's son, obviously Monbay, who goes back to work in a couple of months or a couple of weeks. I spoke to Greg Hope yesterday. So, but you know, he's 10 years old. He's stayed sound for a long time. He's been well trained by Brent Lilly at the back end of his career. Beautiful drive. Temporale's the horse, I think, out of the race, Greg, who's going to go forward because he's only 5. But it's good for the sold horse, and it's good for these guys who have been in trotting for a long time. But if you owned Monbay, and we'll talk about the death of one of his part owners very shortly, if you owned Monbay or the best version of Speeding Spur back in the day, you'd be looking at this, or even Stent, and you'd be thinking, wow, what could have been? But that's racing. It's the timing.
Opportunist, mate. It's all about that.
When you're at your peak and when other horses are at their peak. And the prime example this week is the Chariots of Fire. Chariots of Fire is on this week at Menangle. Ultimate Machete or Vincent would have won it, but they're not there, so they won't.
Let's hear from Brent Lilly, expat Kiwi trainer who trains, of course, Kai Valley Blur. Brent, he thoroughly deserved that. He'd gone so good when he came over to New Zealand, and he just got the right run tonight.
Yeah, look, it played into his hands tonight, and he was disappointing last week, but yeah, we've had a pretty good week with him, so I was confident he'd go much better, and yeah, he got a lovely run, so he deserved it, yeah.
Following Tony Herlihy, so you've beaten an arch rival, I suppose, in terms of the Kiwis, and yeah, got over the top of him. Did you think at the top of the straight he would be able to do that?
Yeah, well, he's always got a good finish on, and yeah, around the bend I could see he was still travelling, so yeah, I thought it was going to get close, but yeah, went right to the wire. So.
2 great drivers. Chris Elford, recently inducted, of course, only last week into the Living Legends. He deserved that as well. And Tony Herlihy, it's awesome to watch these blokes at their trade, isn't it?
Oh, that's right, and on nights like this, you know, the big money's up and the good horses are here, and yeah, the gun drivers are out, so no, it was great.
All right, Group 1 success for you. Congratulations, Brent.
Thanks, Greg.
Yeah, he continues to do a great job in Victoria. Brent Lilly, a smart move a few years ago now when he moved over there, and his colours are seen regularly. Not those colours that won on Kai Valley Blue, but more the green colours, of course, that he had back here in New Zealand so regularly on our television pictures here. Here's what Tony Hurley had to say about the runner-up. Well, Tony, that was pretty brutal, wasn't it?
Yeah, like we had our chances. He got shuffled back in the running there and had to come out and had to come wide. And when you come 4 wide on that last bend here, it is tough like any track, but he launched into it really good and tried all the way down the straight. His old head was out but Brent Lilly trained Kai Valley Blue was just a bit strong on the night, yeah.
He has gone fantastic here in the last couple of weeks. So what do we do with him now, Tony? Back home and set him for the next carnival?
Yeah, we'll probably just give him a wee freshen up and might just look at Easter. I think there might be a good race at Addington at Easter time, but we'll see when we get home.
Yeah, the Group 1 Trotting Championship, yeah.
We'll just see how we go and how we come through all this.
So Tony Hurley, he pretty philosophical, but his horse was very brave. We need to move on to another state in Australia, Menangle, and that's where we're going to be focusing on in Sydney for the next 3 weeks. Here's Whitaker winning a prelude to the race you've just talked about, the Chariots of Fire. Of course, Mark Jones sending him across there. That's him angling off the back. Let It Ride's on his back, the Tim Butt train runner who's got barrier 1 for the Chariots, but Whitaker, well, he continues to progress. He's now won 5 of 9 since heading over there. Michael?
And qualifies for the Chariots, as you said, opportunist in the right race. You can't win the races you're not in. Mark took a big gamble by sending some of his better horses over to Menangle, and you've got to find the right people to do that in association
Rocker Band,
with them.
Delightful Memphis, those types of horses.
It's a hard thing to do. Not many satellite stables anywhere in the world succeed. The galloping guys can get away with it because they've got bigger resources financially. But Mark's made this decision, and it's. If he can maintain it, it's going to be great. But this is a really good advertisement for him. Can he win a Chariots of Fire? You probably wouldn't think so, but he's got more chance of winning it than Vincent and Ultimate Machete have. Yeah, we'll have a look at that barrier draw and race a little bit later on. The Kiwis performing over there, Delishka. Well, she just keeps getting better. She runs down Razor Grunter here, and really, I think, a smart move from Brad Mowbray, giving her opportunity, of course, to go to the Ladyship. We'll also have a look at Franco Nelson winning on the same night. Yeah, and more importantly, not only can she go to the Ladyship, she can probably get a 151 mile. Now, in the sales catalogue in 3 or 4 years' time, that's going to look awfully sexy. And you're right, she's improving, she's getting better. Well done to Brad. Here's Franco Nelson, who I must admit I never thought we would see the best of again. That's Field Marshal in the middle of the track there. It had to do a bit of work once again. Yeah, look, the free-for-alls at Menangle aren't very strong, but these are still 2 good horses. Franco Nelson almost won a New Zealand Cup over Adore Me. It's good to see him back in one piece. How long they can keep him in one piece, I don't know, but on that form he might be good enough to qualify for a Miracle Mile. There's some lovely pickings over there. Those free-for-alls, Greg, at Menangle just aren't strong at all. They will be the next couple of weeks, the preludes to the Miracle Mile, 2 of them on February 17, but after that, it's the right place for a horse like him because I think he had a relatively limited future in New Zealand. So, Menangle the next 3 weeks is going to be kind of sexy. It's going to be cool. Obviously, Lazarus will dominate some of that talk, but there's derbies. All You Need Is Faith winning there yesterday for Mark and Natalie. The Oaks. Her appeal is going to be interesting because if she's got to stay at proceedings, Natalie, so she can drive there this weekend, I would presume. Whether she's back for the Miracle Mile, that's the tricky part because whoever gets the drive, if she doesn't come back on Heaven Rocks in a Miracle Mile... Oh, they're not hiding to nothing, let's be fair. Even if they're not religious, I'm picking they'll say a prayer before they rock out onto the track. That could be a very fun 1 minute and 50 seconds. And a big thanks to PGG Wrights and, of course, Breck and Bloodstock. Massive week ahead for them too. Short break for us. When we return, we'll come local and check out what's been happening here domestically. Welcome back into your box seat, brought to you in association with Sweet Lou, standing at Woodlands. Let's go back to Addington Raceway for group racing. It was Friday night, the mares, the prelude to the Standardbred Breeders. Gee, this was a good race, Michael. There was always going to be a lot of speed early, and that's what unfolded. The winner was fantastic. Like, she settled back. There she is with the big hand, Bonnie Joan. But look, she was probably aided by the fact that they burned up nicely off the gate here and they ran for a good, solid 300 metres. But she still came from the second line, settled midfield and was too good for them. So she's getting better and better and better. I was stunned she was able to win so comprehensively against very good mares over 1950 who led and trailed. Maybe it was tempo related, but there's no excuse.
Good time though, 2:19.7. Yeah. They don't go much quicker than that.
Look, she has to now be the favourite for the Group 1 in, what's 10 days' time?
No doubt. We'll see as they come for home. American Tart, very good. A couple of other good runs. Have a look at the horse that's last there in the Stephen Reed colours. She ends up getting
she does a good
very
job.
Close. Yeah. So, but here's Bonnie Joan getting to the park position. They do turn for home, and as we've seen at some of her runs at Alexandra Park, she's very brave. That was Some Joy directly behind her, but better be amazed just that early burn.
Yeah, I still think she was disappointing because American Tart burned as hard as her and ran past her. So she underperformed for mine compared with her peak. But Bonnie Joan, no excuses. She was fantastic. Utmost Delight was too. Surprised the favourite stayed at 2.6, but the bookies didn't budget so that the punters played down to the 2.6. I think she got to 2.7. The horse who bounced out the other way was American Tart. So, look, they're a nice, good, even bunch. There's no Dream About Me or Piccadilly Princess there or Party On or even Delishka. So there's a Group 1 there dangling for somebody to win. And as we talk about sales week next week, that's going to be huge. That's going to be huge and potentially family changing for one breed of horses. Group 1s are very hard to win in this country.
The Tuapeka breed's been around for a long time.
Well, they wouldn't have had a Group 1 for a long time, though.
That's dead right.
And they're awfully hard to get in the modern era when the All-Stars win so many of them, with those fillies and mares. Off the top of my head, in the last 3 years, I would say the All-Stars have won probably 80% of our pacing Group 1s for fillies and mares, something like that. So when you get these opportunities, it's crucial for her or whoever happens to win it in a couple of weeks' time.
1 of 5 wins on the night, of course, for Dexter. More about that premiership shortly. But yesterday it was Amberley Cup Day. Gee, they do a great job, this club. Big crowd on course again. And this was a deep, deep field. This little mare, Clasina Maria, had to sit park for the initial stages. And that's her dashing to the lead here. Paul and Jessica Young combined. Gee, it was a good run.
I've always liked her. Lovely, hard-trying little mare, obviously on a beast in the grass, you know? and the teal pants salute and the feature of the day.
Yeah, a couple of wins on the day for the teal pants. Diamonds and Cash, just a 3-year-old for Brecon Bloodstock, because we talk about how busy it is for them at the moment. Don Domingo third. Most of those will be heading to the Horata meeting on the grass. It's a big meeting, that as well. They've got the Cup there, of course, a Neverly R heat, which Dizzy Miss Lizzie and Better Joy will go round in.
How was the crowd yesterday?
Yeah, good. Good. Unfortunately, it wasn't so great weather-wise for the early part of the day, and that might have put a few off. But no, it was really strong, and they got out there.
You can make a case that for the whole month of January, we could just race on the grass. I think harness racing on the grass in summer works. It's not my cup of tea for betting, but it's lots of other people's cup of tea. And I think that it gels. If we didn't
It was
race...
the start of the race, Michael.
Yeah.
You can go back to that in a moment. There's Diamonds and Cash having a gallop. Now, a 3-year-old having a gallop against a decent field like this. Bailey's Night had been unbeatable, basically, in its last 3, and it galloped as well. To run second and get that close was full of merit, that run.
Yeah, I think we're seeing more and more that our 3-year-olds are measuring up to the older horses, a lot more than they used to.
Back to your grass track idea.
Yeah, I just think it's worth thinking about. I think it's a real strength, and it's also a difference, because once we get rocking and rolling into Addington and Alexandra Park, probably Addington or Alexandra Park's going to be racing every Friday now for the rest of the season. So it's
light driver.
Yep, light driver on the grass. I just think it works in January. I would be more than happy to see no Addington or Alexandra Park for either of those 2 months, that month of January, because I think it works. As I said, it draws people to the track because they can sit on the grass and just enjoy their families and stuff. So
she's won over 60,000 now. Of course, we had a big time down at the Kapiti Coast, and Classy American was the winner there on Sunday. Got beaten by Marshall Star in the Wellington Cup on the Friday, so driven by Dylan Ferguson. That was a pretty heady sort of a drive. Speaking of drivers, what about the Drivers' Premiership? We are a long way from the end of the season, Michael, but there was a significant move by Dexter. He got 8 winners prior to Sunday and then Tuesday, where Blair picked up 5 winners. So whilst he didn't completely bounce back, it was a decent bounce back, and I think at the moment he's 22 behind, but there's still 6 months to go. It's a long way to be talking about who's going to win the Premiership.
what would change it immensely for me is a suspension of 2 weeks. Say either Blair or Dexter gets 2 weeks, and the other one ironically would pick up some of the other guys' drives and could drive 10. Now, if that happens to Blair, he's 32 clear, and you would think it's gone. Happens to Dexter, he all of a sudden cuts it to 12, and it's in play. So I think it'd be great for the end of the season if we had a real battle and we saw them travelling to Cambridge and Alexandra Park and those sort of places.
What I don't want to happen is
Bodgy
a
drives.
Breeders' Crown walkover scenario. Please not let that happen. It's smeared previous campaigns.
Bodgy drives where somebody goes, you know, I'm going to give you 6 of my drives.
Yeah.
I think it'll be a fair fight. I think a lot of people want Blair to win for something different, but everybody in the industry loves Dex too. So it's got to be an interesting fight. The fact that Dex was 750 at one stage with the bookies is now looking inviting, but 22 is still a lot of wins.
All right.
Just
John.
talking about drivers, we made a mistake last week, and we do apologise to the historians in harness racing. Last week we spoke about those who had driven 5, 6 or even 7 wins on one card. Well, the first person to do it was the late Doug Watts at Reefton, drove 7 of 8, and my good friend Dave Cannon pointed out to me last night, the doyen of harness racing writers in this part of the world, that we missed it. I don't know how we missed it, because we mentioned it on air. Anyway, here it is. Doug Watts sits with that group. The late Doug Watts sits with Dexter and Tony Herlihy, of the ones we know of. 7 out of 8 at Reefton, Greg, and our apologies to the members of his family, because he started that great conversation, Gregory.
John Dunn driving very well as well. Of course, he picked up another 3 yesterday. Matty Williamson got to 50. Majestic Connies he won with. That's the 7th time in the last 8 years that Matthew Williamson's got over 50. Of course, as a junior in 2013, he got 113. So he continues to drive well.
I think there's never been a tougher time to be a driver in New Zealand, because you've still got all the great horsemen of the last 20 years, Morris and Tony and Brett Mangos and Barry, but all these people are still going around. Colin DeFilippi, Jim Curtin, just more than I can name, James Stormont, lots of members of the 1,000 Winning Club. But coming in behind them, you've got Dexter and Blair and Zach Butcher and Josh Dickey and all the Williamsons. And then you've got off to the side with all the firepower they have, Mark and Nat and Tim Williams. So I can't remember a time where it's just been tougher to find winning drives on our main tracks. So the standard's incredibly high, and we're very, very lucky to have all these people in play at once, because you would think inside 10 years, Greg, some of those names will probably be looking to retire, and Ricky May obviously is another one. We'll look back on this and the David Butchers and go, wow.
What an era.
What an incredible time this has been. So it's, but it can't be easy to embark.
As we go to a break, when we come back, we're going to catch up with Jean Feast, find out a little bit more about her. Robert Dunn leads the Trainers' Premiership, by the way, 49 over the All-Stars 47, and Steve Telfer on 31. Back shortly.
Well, Jean, your name's become synonymous, yours and Bill's, with so many big race wins now, particularly in New Zealand. It was time we had a catch-up. So you better give us some background as to where you got into this game.
Well, I've had horses probably since I was a little girl, and then that just progressed. Then I started training horses, and I rode gallopers as a young girl. then got into harness horses, training harness horses, and then retired, and now I'm an owner and enjoying that.
Pretty successful training-wise too. I know you couldn't put an exact figure on it, but it was somewhere in the 200, 250 wins. So it's not like you weren't handy at the caper.
Yeah, no, we had a good run there for many years, and Matthew drove a lot of them. As he got older, he drove. And then we decided it was time to hang up the bridle and let someone else do the hard yards, and we can enjoy it.
Look, he was getting more into the thoroughbred side of things.
Yeah, that's right.
Is that pretty much how it allowed you to wind things down?
Yeah, he was doing pre-training and rehabilitation of gallopers or thoroughbreds, and so that was a full-time job. Yeah.
Towards the back end of that, you had a very smart horse called Sammy Maguire, who won the Bendigo Cup, and then you sent him over to Marks towards the end of his career, and he picked up a couple of wins.
That's right, yeah. But he wasn't a sound horse, so he wasn't on the scene very long with Mark.
And Mark had been and stayed at your establishment a few times, so that's where that relationship...
the association sort of started, yeah.
It's gone on a wee bit from then, though, to be fair.
That's right, yes. It's been very, very successful. Mm.
Let's find out about how it comes about and the process that you go through to select your yearlings, because you've been successful both sides of the Tasman, so there must be a formula there. So run me through between you and Bill and then to Mark how that all works.
Well, first you look at the pedigree, obviously, you go through that. Look at what the mare's produced, what the stallion's produced, what the family is, the depth of the family. Sort of just get a little bit of a feel for the horse, and then go and have a look at the horse on the day and take it from there.
Jean, what's the most important factor? Is it page or type? What do you place the most emphasis on?
It has to be both. Sometimes I'll pick one in the book and go there, and it's not nice, so that's no good. And then sometimes I'll see a nice one, but I don't fancy the page, so I'll let that one go too. Yeah.
So you have a look. Does Bill do something similar? Do you?
He does, but normally I'll pick them out and he'll have a look and go through them and see what he thinks. And I'll say to Matthew, have a look at this one, and we sort of have a bit of talk about it, and then, as I say, then I'll have a look at the horse itself. Yeah.
And that's very important. You physically turn up and go and have a look at them well before sale time.
Yeah.
And that formula seems to work to that point, but then there's the secondary part, which is, does Mark Purdon agree with you, or Mark and Natalie in this case?
That's right, yeah. Most times, yes. In the most part, yes, they do. There's the odd times no, and if that's the case, well, I'll let the horse go by. Mark and Nat have to train the horse, so they have to like the horse, and that's extremely important.
Jean, what do you find, or what attracts you the most to the New Zealand Standardbred? Because your record of selecting them, and I know there's been a couple that haven't fired up, and that's standard, you know, across anyone who's buying it at a yearling sale stage. Why the New Zealand harness horse? What do you like about them?
I think I like the depth of their pedigrees. They're always well developed, I think. Now, whether it's the grass you've got over there or the way they're looked after or brought up, I don't know, but they're very well developed, good bone, that type of thing, yep.
When you go to the sales, do you go there with a budget, or do you go there with I believe this is the value of that horse and therefore this is what I'm prepared to pay?
That's right. I think I sort of put a price on it. Maybe I'd go a little bit more. If I like the horse on the day, I'd probably go there with a bit of a one in mind. And then if I like the horse on the day, I'll go that little bit extra. But then, you know, there's a limit to how much. You know, you've got to keep in mind that they've got to go to the races and earn money. You've got to keep them sound. So, you know, there's a limit to what you want to be outlaying.
12 months ago, maybe there wasn't a limit.
There wasn't, no.
Jesse Duke rocked through the sale ring and you weren't going without him.
That just blew that theory away. Yeah, and I thought he'd go for good money, not that. And then I think everybody, you know, there was just so many bidders on him that liked him that they just kept going. And I thought,
Every time you looked at him, though,
yeah.
he just gave you that.
That's right.
Unreal.
Yeah, yeah. And he was the one that I wanted, so I thought, oh, well, I hope he can run.
What about the future, Jean? The way things are going, I can't see this dynasty between you and the All-Stars slowing up in the short term anyway.
No, look, we've got a good relationship. They're great trainers, great people, great to deal with. So, I mean, what more do you want? And they look after their horses, they nurture the baby horses to turn them into race horses. They give them the time. So what more can you ask for?
And driving-wise,
well,
you've got two of the best.
That's right.
Anywhere in the world.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
That must give you great confidence when they go into those big races. And yeah, do you get nervous? Is it because you've been a trainer, you know how difficult it is? Although it doesn't appear that way, the way things are going. But how do you approach race days?
No, I don't get nervous. I'm just glad when it's over though, because it's you know, it's over. But no, I don't get nervous. No.
I suppose so often your horses are going out favourites, so there's an expectation from not only you, but you don't like that?
No, I hate being favourite.
Yep.
Yeah, I think, oh, you know, there's so much weight on their shoulders then, but...
Are you an investor, as in, do you back your own horses? Have you ever, when you train?
Never bet. I never bet, and I don't think, personally, I don't think trainers should bet.
Yep.
Because I don't think that they have the right outlook on the horse then, if it wins.
Clouds their judgment maybe a little bit?
Yeah,
it's
you
determined by what they've put on it? Or
yeah,
maybe,
that's right. And I mean, you know, I bet that's up to, you know,
yeah,
but I don't bet. I'm too stingy with my money. I think I'd look at it and think, no, what if they don't win? I've lost my money.
Well, we're pleased you don't have that attitude when it comes to the yearling sales, because
that's right.
yeah, it's a fair risk, but you seem to be narrowing down the risk involved, because yeah, the strike rate is nothing short of phenomenal.
It's
really.
Been great. Yeah, it really has been great.
Yeah, so great to catch up with Jean Feast, and I'm sure it's going to be an incredibly active time for her and Bill over the sales week as well. Speaking of busy, Ken and Karen Brecken and Brecken Bloodstock are, and we asked them most recently about some of their filly syndicates and how well they're going.
Well, look, they've been incredibly successful and very exciting that this year probably one of our best early fillies, Linda Lovegrace, had her first foal this year, a Some Beach Somewhere colt. The following year, of course, we've had the likes of Party On. Another good performer for us was Big Lucy. In fact, we have her first colt in the sale this year, an outstanding major colt. And of course, and then Highgate, and I mean, everyone will know her deeds. She won 4 Group 1s, and the Dickies are having great success, as is Woodland Stud Charlie Roberts with Girls on Film. So they've been very successful, and what's really encouraging for us, we are raising the bar, and we're finding that our pedigree is a lot stronger by having these syndicates. We're getting a lot of early 2-year-olds on the track, and I think through that a lot of people are realising out there Brecken Farms is providing a lot of early 2-year-olds. I think this season we've already had the winners of the first 2 Young Gun series. We won the first Colts one with a horse called Smart Fortune out of Affairs of State.
And they can't get Smart Fortune. Smart son of Art Major.
Tony Hurley, he was successful with Miss Streisand. So it's just great to see these babies getting up and winning, and fantastic to get a result so early on.
Yeah, full circle for Brecken Farms. That's how long they've been going, and he spoke about Linda Lovegrace and her foal, and this one by Some Beach Somewhere. And there's Linda. She did a magnificent job, multiple Group 1 winner as we know, and here's her first foal. So yeah, I know how passionate Ken and Karen are about the breeding side of things as well, Michael.
Yeah, I think a lot of people going to the sales like this, they like to buy from horses who went early and could race in those 2- and 3-year-old races. And it seems to be the very in thing to do at the sales these days, almost more so than going back to the old families. So it seems to be the new trend, and therefore you would think she would have a very commercial broodmare history. On the filly front, these filly syndicates are good because basically you get to race them almost for free. You don't pay to get into them, then you pay the training fees, and most people don't want to breed later on, and Ken and Karen do, so you give the horse back to them.
Here's a few more from their draft, as we did last week. They've got right behind the month of February with PGG rights, and this one by Some Beach Somewhere at a Braeside Lady. 2 foals so far. Oh Baby, hello, Group 1 twice, Neville and Jules, of course, and Beach Bay Beauty, who's subsequently been sold but showed immense potential.
Yeah, good horse, and the Some Beach Somewheres will be in demand because obviously they're not going to be making too many more of those coming up in the future.
No, he looks a decent sort of a colt. Lot 81 is him. Another colt they have there, Lot 127, a Muscle Hill out of Fear Factor. So this one, of course, this is the Stress Factor family, and yeah, looking forward to seeing.
Prince Fearless family, and Muscle Hill, obviously one of the leading sires in North America. So obviously a lot of other people have horses in play too. So PGG
the trotters are going to be really strongly sought after.
Of course they are.
Yeah,
and so they should be. They've been underpriced for a long time, but this farm sold a trotter for 120 a couple of years ago, and that's Girls on Film, and she's doing the job, and she's worth more than that already, and as a broodmare worth way more than that. So lots of other places have horses for sale as well. Of course, next week sales Monday, parade day, and then trotting sale Tuesday in Christchurch, then sale with supplementary sale next Wednesday. PGG rights and have all the info. But
yeah, go to standardbred.co.nz. We've got a filly to have a look at as well for you, Lot 145, an Art Major out at Meet Me in Mayfair. Now, that one, well, I may have got that wrong actually. This one's a Some Beach one, somewhere out of Good on Top.
How do you think they'll sell? I think they'll be very strong sellers, the Some Beaches.
Yep, I absolutely do. For a couple of factors. Obviously, him passing, I think people will see it as an opportunity to make sure they get one of those, but he's also doing the job.
Well, he is. And he leaves nice, big, strong horses, and people like buying strong horses. I'm not sure that sometimes you go there looking for a horse you think will be a 2-year-old shape, but a lot of horses grow and change shape. But it's going to be really interesting to sail to see how the trotting thing goes down in Christchurch. Here's the last of the Brecon ones, I think. And this is the He's a Doozy one. So, of course, our Love Your Doozy, and that's one of the most in vogue trotting families in Australasia, again by Muscle Hill.
Not only I Can Do's it, but Snow's Big Boy, the list goes on, and I'm sure Bruce Carter will be rapt that I gave Brook Street a mention there, an Art Major filly out of Meet Me in Mayfair. So anyway, there's something for everyone at the sale, no doubt about that.
Yeah, there is. The trotting sale on Tuesday in Christchurch is really interesting. It'll be interesting to see how that's received, but they've been underpriced for a long time. They're slowly getting back to where they should be. Talking about Some Beach Somewhere, who unfortunately passed away due to cancer 2 weeks ago. Well, Woodland Stud have a new son of him they are bringing to New Zealand, Greg, and you can see the thought process here. Quite clearly the horse has passed. People will now be looking for his better sons to bring to New Zealand, and Woodlands are one of the first to strike at that level.
Let's have a look at him. Yeah. And who's driving him? Purple Jesus, your man, David Miller. His name, Down by the Seaside.
Down by the Seaside roars away for Miller to win the Governor's Cup in impressive fashion.
Yeah, he's an impressive horse, and David Miller doing the steering on him, and Down by the Seaside, I think will be pretty strongly sought after. Here's a look at his pedigree page. So,
well, the obvious thing there, Greg, is this Mark III sire line, Matt Scooter sire line, so you can go to Betters Delight mares, and that's crucial. I mean, that's why Woodlands would have bought him, because they have a whole barn full
of
his
record.
Betters Delight mares.
Yeah, and what he's been able to achieve. He equalled Sweet Lou's record of 149, fastest ever 2-year-old on a half-mile track, and the 3-year-old of the year in the US, earning 1.6 million. So credentials-wise, he's pretty strong.
Yeah, and a lot of studs are going to need to position themselves in the next 5 to 10 years around this type of thing, and that's going to be having horses you can breed to all the Art Majors and Betters Delights we're going to have, because literally there is going to be 1,000 of them in 5 years' time.
Okay, we're about to take a short break. When we return, Chariots of Fire and some pretty good domestic racing coming up as well. Stick with us. Welcome back into your box seat. What's been a pretty tough couple of weeks in harness racing. We lost another stalwart of the sport, Maury Molloy, of course, better known in the latter parts of his life, of course, as the part owner of Mon Bay, but gee, he owned horses right throughout his life. He is one of the great moments for Maury, winning the Hara des Trotteurs Dominion at Group 1 level, of course, Greg and Nina Hope and Ricky May. Just 77, battled Parkinson's disease in the latter part of his life, but actually used it as a tool to entertain people at times, Michael. And I had several opportunities to have a chat to Maury, and he always enlightened you into how great a sport this was. And yeah, pretty sad time for his family and friends. That's him on the right there. And yeah, he's been lost to the sport, but he won't be forgotten. He's been a huge part of it.
No, he won't be. Added some real humanity to some of the victory ceremonies and the national awards, because he was fighting Parkinson's, which would be a hell of a thing to do. And he actually ended up passing after having a heart attack 2.5 weeks ago. So he'll be fondly remembered by a lot of people, and his name will be in the history books of harness racing forever through the deeds of Mon Bay. So rest in peace, Maury.
We saw some incredible pictures coming out of the West Coast. This is the Westport Trotting Club. You've been there a few times, and so have I. They're not great scenes, and there's the track. We certainly wouldn't have been racing that weekend. If
you come from the coast, you get used to this.
Where's the whale? We might see him float in, surely.
The old days at Victoria Park in Greymouth, which sadly these days is closed and is dormant land, unused, that this was not an irregular occurrence, but nobody bounces back from floods like coasters and people from Bulla, so I'm sure they'll bounce back from that.
But ironically, it wasn't the sea, it was at the back of the racetrack where the water came from. So
when it rains down home,
yeah,
it really
rains a wee bit. Look, it does appear that things are going to be a-okay for their traditional March 2-day meeting, and good luck to them getting it back to...
A moto had similar scenes, this is a true story, similar scenes to that, and raced 2 days later. Yeah. That's a true story, because the ground there drains so quickly, but it's pretty wild.
Right, what's ahead for us racing-wise this week, and there is plenty of it. Cambridge, $40,000 Fast Track Insurance Pick 6 there, just before 6 o'clock Thursday evening. Alexandra Park, good meeting there, $25,000 Brecon Farms Young Guns Heat, and the first of the Neverley R Heats. So that'll be a good race night. Don't forget too, Derby and Oaks nominations close Friday the 16th, I think it's about 1 o'clock maybe. There's the Gore meeting, should be a good meeting there too. The Cup just after 5 o'clock. Hororata will be racing at Methven, their traditional meeting there. There's the second heat of the Neverley R at $20,000, and that Hororata Cup we mentioned earlier on. And Manawa 2 will have a 10 race card there on Tuesday, 1:38. Of course, across the Tasman, things hot up in Sydney. To Menangle we will go, $200,000 on the line for the Group 1 Chariots. Action here on trackside 1, 8:13 the start time. Let It Ride Barrier 1, Whitaker from 4, Jillaby Kung Fu 9, and Atomic Red 10, so the Kiwis with an advantage there. And then, of course, in the Sibelia Stakes, we've got Delishka Party On, Piccadilly Princess and Rocker Band.
Yeah, I think the best horse in the race is Jillaby Kung Fu. Was awesome winning at Melton last time out, and if he produces that form, I think he'll win. But Atomic Red's a very good horse. He's the one who beat Ultimate Machete in a Derby heat last year. So not a Chariots were probably as turned on by as in recent years, and a whole bunch of good horses aren't there, but somebody's going to get their Group 1 the week after we roll into Lazarus and Heaven Rocks and the Derby heats and all that sort of stuff. So it'll be the home of harness racing for the next 3 Saturday nights.
You were talking about Jillaby Kung Fu. Let's have a look at him winning the Bonanza. Gee, he was brave this time. Stars Align, he beats here and beats him well.
151 and change, sitting parked. If he'd drawn 1, 2 or 3, he'd be $1.30. I think he'll probably win the race.
Coming, Jillaby Kung Fu, the outside, draws alongside and got up. What a big win, Jillaby Kung Fu.
Yeah, he was very brave, wasn't he? Just back to those Derby and Oaks noms. Yeah, it is 11 a.m, they do close, so I'm looking forward to the Alexandra Park Carnival in March, but Menangle will certainly be well worth tuning in for over the next 3 Saturday nights.
It'd be really interesting with that Carnival in March where the Lazarus turns up. He's going to be in Sydney. He'll have to come back through Auckland. $50,000 free for all. Smolder turned up there last year, so you got to wonder, maybe we could sneak another performance in for him, because let's be honest, he'd go around $1.10, win it, and it's $30K.
Yeah.
I would love to see him come back. It'd be cool.
Wouldn't it be good? Yep. So Alexandra Park, Friday night. I know you're going to find a winner there for us.
Yeah, one of my favourite lower grade horses is racing there, a horse called American Brave. We'll get to him shortly. It's a 2-year-old heat. I thought Star of Montana was really good on debut, but the 4, the 5, the 6 and the 3 here all trialled up against each other the other day, and the 5 won, but there was nothing in it at Pookie, so the 4 of them hit the line
Franco
together.
Niven, that's out of the Franco Nelson family, owned by Ian Dobson, I'm pretty sure, is Franco Niven. So, yeah, looking forward to seeing the freshman stepping out once again at the park.
It's always exciting. I think the bar's been set pretty high by Jesse Duke, but we'll see where that all shakes out over the next month or so.
What about the 3-year-old fillies in the north?
I don't know. I think something about Mary might be the best of these, but I just don't know. 1700, when they jump and run like Qatari Cullen can, it can be hard to catch them. But I thought the 6, I almost made it my bet of the week, but they're probably happy I didn't.
Conversely, the heat at Hororata on the grass.
What do you make of this?
Dizzy Miss Lizzie against Better Joy. Now, that should be a terrific contest.
Which one do you like?
Dizzy Miss Lizzie. I think she'll bounce back. There you go. I think she can do that. What about the best bets, Michael? We cancelled what happened in 2017. But status quo arrived last week.
Yeah, no, terrible
Ocean
last week.
Ridge for me.
I'm actually going American Brave. I think he's a really good horse. I think he might be the best horse Steve Telfer has trained.
Okay, that's a fair rap.
I
Better Be Amazed.
think this is a very good horse.
Okay, I'm with Star Commander going around at Gore, off 20 metres, but he's down there to qualify for the supremacy. So yeah, I think he will be winning there. Valeria won the Hanley Formula Challenge Stakes, a very good trotting race, beat Majestic Man, of course. So yeah, that was at Geraldine on Saturday.
On the subject of 3-year-old trotters, Paramount King back tomorrow at Cambridge. So the Jules winner is back as they start to warm up. To everybody selling next week, good luck. It's a tricky time of the year. I know you're a bit nervous and stuff, but I hope things go well for you because, Greg, without the breeders and the vendors, we wouldn't have an industry. So we probably don't hear as much about them as we would like to, but yeah, good luck next week at the sales.
Yeah, we'll have a live show for you, wrapping up all of the sales action. That's been your box seat for this Wednesday. We'll see you again in 7 days' time. Good luck over the next week.